Hello and welcome to that WNBA podcast. We're back again to dive deep into the world of the WNBA. Join me as I celebrate the incredible athlete. I'm back again, everyone. Hopefully, with that didn't cut out there with the weather around here at the moment. And today's a double episode. It's going to be extra long. Okay, it's going to be extra in depth because last week I wasn't here. Life has been crazy, life has been busy, and I just didn't get the time to make an episode last week. So we're here for a longer episode to talk about all things WNBA. And God, there's a lot going on. We're getting towards the end of the season. As you can see on the bar here on the bottom of the screen, the playoffs are almost locked in. All right, and that's the main thing we're going to talk about. Some talking points around that. Can the Fever make the finals? I'm going to give you the case, my case, why they can. And we're also going to talk about the MVP race again, the Rookie of the Year race again. Go a little bit more in depth, look at some different things, at some new news stories, and talk about whether everything's locked in. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to discuss. Those are the headlines. So, look, let's get into it. Make sure that, you follow me on all your social media at that WNBA podcast. Follow the channel. You can get this podcast on all your podcasting platforms, including YouTube and Spotify. Leave a comment, a review, subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, anything that'll get this podcast out there. Again, I've said this a lot, but I'm still looking into some microphones and a new camera. And look, I can't do that unless hopefully some people enjoy this podcast. I know I'm getting a few views here and there, but we need to put this out there. If you enjoy listening to me, giving my insight and my little opinion on the game, somebody that's not from the national media over in the US, then please give a follow. Anything will help. But I can only improve the visuals here and the audio if you guys all hang around and get it out there. So as you can see, first and most importantly, last week, no episode, but my Caitlin Clark Indiana Fever jersey has arrived. So happy with it. It's incredible. Personally, I can't wait to see them play in the playoffs. We're almost there. But this is here. I've waited for this right in time for my birthday. It was yesterday. And look, I'm excited. And I'm excited to talk to you guys today about what's been going on. So we've been away for 2 weeks. A lot's been happening. I'm not going to recap all the games. I'm not going to do anything like that because that'll take me forever. But the playoffs are almost locked in. Can you imagine? Jesus. The season's gone really quickly, as we all know. And seats 1 through to 7 are finally confirmed. They were confirmed today. One spot outstanding that a couple of teams are still playing for. But we know what the top 7 is going to be. We might not know the exact order, but we know who's in it. And I think I'm going to tell you who's going to play who. I'm going to tell you who's going to win at least the first round of their playoff series. I'm also going to give you my case of why the Fever can make it to the finals and possibly win the finals. I know that's a bit of a stretch. That might be outlandish to say. I know Stephen A. Smith obviously gave his take on why the Rookie of the Year race is over. I'm going to give you my take. And let's see what we get to here. But first of all, okay, and this is really the place I want to start. The playoffs are locked in. And just to give you some key dates, okay, the regular season ends on September 19th. That's 15 days from now. That's just over 2 weeks. The Fever have 7 games left to play. That's not a lot. It's similar for all the teams, and we're almost there. The playoffs begin just 3 days later on September 22nd, and October 20th is the last possible finals date. So this is going to go by in a flash. So please, if you enjoy the league, if you enjoy the basketball that's being played, give it a watch because it's going to be gone in the blink of an eye, and we're going to be back in the off season. So I read an article, okay, published on ESPN that gave a few points on some playoff related things, including a playoff predictor. Now, obviously, I don't think you can put too much into a predictor like this. I know there are stats surrounding it. We all use statistics when it comes to basketball. They play a really important part in the way we analyze the game. However, I think when it comes to playoff basketball, matchups play such an important role. The ability to adjust in certain situations to certain players, to certain teams, this makes such a big difference. And luck plays a huge part, okay? As much as we don't want to talk about that, obviously these teams work hard all year. Luck, when it comes to injuries and other things, plays a huge part in playoff basketball. So I don't think you can take too much out of this. But I'm going to give you my reasons for why I think some of these are maybe a good pick, some of them maybe not. First of all, let's go through the top 8 teams. So we have the Liberty firmly in first place. Now, the Liberty are obviously the title favourites. I would pick them to win the title at this point in time. I have been for a long time now. I think the Aces are a bit discombobulated. They're not playing their best. It's so hard to win multiple titles in a row. And I think the Liberty, they're just playing out of their skin. I think that they are on a roll. I think that they've just got it all going for them at the moment. So I would definitely bet on them to at least make the finals if I were a betting man. Their probability to make the playoffs is obviously higher than 99% because they have clinched a playoff spot. Okay, so that probability goes out the window for all these teams that have clinched a playoff spot. Top 4 seed, the Liberty are virtually locked in, and that's the fact. Yeah, it's pretty much the case down to the Connecticut Sun. The Aces, a little less so. With their stumbles along the way, there's still enough games for them to maybe move down to the 5th spot. I don't think they're going to fall much further past that. But I think it's really important for them to at least get their 4th spot and get that home ground advantage. So we'll go through the Liberty, obviously a really high percentage chance to make the finals at 61%. Minnesota leads 43%, Connecticut Sun 41%, Aces 36%. And then we really take a big drop off, obviously, with the seeding. If you're going to have home court, obviously the top 4 spots are a huge advantage. And with these playoffs, with these teams, I think in most of these cases, really important. But I'm going to give you a couple of outlandish maybe takes here as to why I don't think that some of these percentages are as high as or are higher than they should be. So we move down to the Seattle Storm, 8% chance of making the finals. The Fever, a 5% chance. Mercury, a 4% chance. And those are the 7 teams that are locked in. Then we have the Dream and the Sky fighting for that last spot. They're both less than a 1% chance. Indiana down a less than 1% chance to make the top 4 seed, and I think that is pretty much realistically impossible for any of these teams to do, and I don't expect them to. The Seattle Storm, as I said, still have a chance to get past the Aces. And right now, I think the Atlanta Dream have the better chance to make the playoffs over Chicago. So, look, that's a little bit of a rundown of percentage chances. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If the Liberty play anybody in the first round, whether that is Atlanta or Chicago, they will sweep the series, no problem whatsoever. The Minnesota Lynx are playing probably the Mercury in the first round. They're going to absolutely win that series and move on. But here's where it gets interesting. and that's the 3rd seed and the 4th seed in their first round matchups. So the Connecticut Sun all year, okay, some people have said that they might be a little fraudulent, and I don't know how much you want to take into account there. There's lots of different factors, but they've played relatively good basketball. The team they haven't played good basketball against is the Indiana Fever. Okay, the Indiana Fever have won that series. They've won it convincingly. Every game they have played, the ones they've won, they have won convincingly. They have played incredible basketball, and they're on a roll. Now, I fully expect that Indiana will finish in the 6th seed and play the Connecticut Sun, because I don't think the Aces are going to make up into 3rd. I don't think the Fever are going to fall down, and I'm going to tell you why a little bit later. I think that the Indiana Fever can go and beat Connecticut in the 1st round and at least make it to the 2nd round of the playoffs. At least. I'll give you more. I've mentioned I'll give you more of a take later on as to why the Fever could make the finals. Stick around for that. Okay, stick with me on that one. I'll tell you why. But then also the Las Vegas Aces and the Seattle Storm. They've both been really up and down. And I think the Vegas Aces are just too unpredictable at the moment. I think A'ja Wilson is going to be undoubtedly unanimous MVP. But they lost to Dallas on the road. A'ja dropped 41 points and they still lost. Now Dallas is 2nd last in the standings. They now have Satu back, I understand that, but you shouldn't be losing those games. And I just don't think they have enough from the other members of the cast, which is weird to say because you've got Kelsey Plum, you've got Jackie Young, you've got plenty of great players on that team. You've got Kate Martin as a rookie backup off the bench. She's been playing fantastically. But they seem to be a little bit discombobulated. I don't know what the reason for that is, but they're just not getting enough. You can't put it all on A'ja Wilson. And I think we've seen in the past, not only in the female sport, but also on the men's side of things, that if you have one star carrying your team with 40-point games, etc., all the time, it usually means something's wrong. Especially in the women's sport, where scoring is down a little bit from the men's side of things, you wouldn't be expecting a player to be getting 30, 40-point games all the time. And even though A'ja is playing so well, I don't think you'd want that particularly to be the case, because it usually means that other people aren't carrying the load. And you want your star player to have good games. You want them to be consistently good, to be good in the big moments, to kind of drag you over the line. Maybe if you're having a kind of subpar game, if other people are missing shots, then you need your star to have a 40-point game, kind of drag you over the line, give you that push, give the rest of the team that confidence that even when they're having a down game, the star can still save your ass, essentially. But you don't want it to be happening all the time, because that means either the other players are complacent and they think that the star's just going to do everything, which I'm sure is not the case. I'm not saying it's the case. I know players on the Aces, especially like Kelsey Plum, they have so much experience. They're so talented. They work so hard. That's never going to be the case in this situation. They know what it takes to win. Okay, they're multiple-time champions. But sometimes it just kind of maybe throws you off. It just means you're not in the groove. You're not playing your best basketball. And I think that's what's happening here. So I think, obviously, usually your 4th, 5th seed series is going to be one of the closer ones in a lot of cases. But I think the Seattle Storm, even though they've been up and down, they haven't really been as consistent as maybe they'd like to be. I think they've got a great shot at beating the Aces in the first round. And I mean a great shot. I think if you don't look at the percentage of each of these teams making the finals, which I think is far too high for the Aces, by the way, at the moment, the way they're playing. I think you've got a 50-50 chance that either of these teams comes out of the first round. And I think that's where it's going to play into the rest of these playoffs and the Fever going on a bit of a run. So, look, my predictions are the Liberty beat Atlanta in the first round. I think Atlanta are going to get that 8th seed, which plays into the Rookie of the Year race, of course. Minnesota are going to beat the Mercury. I think the Fever are going to beat Connecticut, and I think that the Aces are going to beat Seattle. I'm sticking with it, and I think Seattle are going to beat the Aces, I should say, not the Aces beat Seattle, and I think I'm sticking with that for the first round. And we can go on there from the bracket. If we have a look at what the bracket is going to be. So let's have a look. When it comes to playoff brackets, this year, I believe it's a new playoff format. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's a new playoff format. And this is the way it's going to work. And I think if you're, if you've watched the NBA, you're going to be very familiar with this. But obviously, when I say playoffs in the top 8 seeds in the WNBA, that is from across the league, that is not conference based. So it's total record in between all the teams in the league. And so what that means is that if the Liberty wins in the first round, like I'm predicting, they will face the winners of the 4th, 5th seed battle, which will be Las Vegas or Seattle. And the winner of the 2nd seed battle, which I'm predicting to be the Lynx, will play, in my scenario here, the Indiana Fever. And I think that the Fever also have played really well against the Lynx this year. And I don't think the Lynx are good enough. I think the Liberty are so far above everybody else at the moment that I don't think you can discount Indiana from beating any of the rest of the teams. I think if they make it out of the first round, they have a great shot at beating the Lynx. Now, your first round in the WNBA, if you don't know, is a best of 3. It's not best of 7 throughout all the rounds as it is in the NBA. Remembering that the NBA used to have a similar format to this, it was not always just best out of 7. But I think best of 3 gives a lower team a better chance of winning, actually. So if you think about the NBA and you think of a best of 7 series, the reasoning behind that is that you would think that the better team would win a best of 7 series 90% of the time, let's say, because usually the better team will win at least 4 games, especially if you've got a 1 against 8 seed. If you've only got a best of 3, let's say you have 1 bad game, you win the other 2 if you're the much better team. If you're more even, right, it's a very even series and it comes to a buzzer beater or 2 and maybe a team has 1 bad game, that can really swing it to an underdog. So I think that the Indiana Fever will come out of the first round. I think they'll play the Lynx. And I really think that they have a great chance of beating the Lynx in the second round and moving to the finals. But I really do. And that might sound strange, but I just really think they do. And here's a reason why. They're playing phenomenal basketball at the moment. They are on a roll. Only one other team in playoff WNBA history has come from a 1-8 start down to make it to the finals. Okay, and that team was a team actually that disbanded a long time ago, and I don't know if you can guess what the team was called, and I'm not going to claim to remember. This was a long time ago. I was 7 years old when this happened. But the Charlotte Sting who disbanded in 2006. Sorry, I was 2 when this bit of history happened. The Charlotte's team, who disbanded in 2006, made the WNBA finals in 2001 after starting the season 1-8 and lost there to LA. Now, I think this will be a similar case. I think the Fever could make it to the finals and then lose to the Liberty in straight sets, basically. Okay, it gets absolutely swept, blown out of the water, because I think the Liberty are just that much better than everyone else. That's discounting the fact that maybe an injury or two happens to Brianna Stewart or Sabrina or whatever it may be. But the Fever started 1-8. Okay, in their last 8 games, they are 7-1. They've completely turned that around. They have 7 games left. 6 of them are at home at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, which they've made an absolute fortress this season, starting on Wednesday with the Los Angeles Sparks, which is Thursday here, so tomorrow for me. The Fever have led the WNBA in attendance this season with huge crowds. Their home crowd advantage, as well as their away crowd advantage in a way, is incredible. You heard when the Fever played my team in the Dallas Swings, you heard Sadu talk about the fact that she didn't like how many Indiana Caitlin Clark jerseys there were in her house, which is incredible for the sport. But, she wants Dallas fans to come to these games and wear Dallas jerseys, which we all want. But in saying that, that's another factor to factor in the playoffs, because in the playoffs, home court advantage is such a big thing, especially if I'm thinking about the NBA. But imagine if you're the home team in the Connecticut Sun, you've lost 3 games to the Fever throughout the year. The Fever are firing on all cylinders. I haven't looked at their strength of schedule in detail, but they've got, I think, at least 5 out of 7 of those games are very winnable. So they're coming on a roll. They are the away team, okay? But when you're in your house, you are going to see half an arena full of red Caitlin Clark jerseys. I mean, it's not much of a home ground advantage at that point anymore, because those people are cheering for the Fever actively. And then you need to go, let's say you lose game 1, you go to Indiana, and then you're facing a sold-out Fever crowd. I mean, I really think I have a shot. And especially the way they've been playing, Caitlin's not quite their top scorer, because we know how much and how good Mitchell's been playing lately, who's averaging like 19 points a game. Clark's averaging 18.7, but she's had some monster games. She's been dishing the rock like no tomorrow. Aliyah Boston has also been averaging 13.4, Smith 11.1. Caitlin Clark leads the WNBA in assists. Aliyah Boston is top 10 in rebounding at 9 a game. Like, they started 1-8. They were 11-15 at the break. They've been 6-1 since. They are one of the hottest teams in the league. And also, I think that 1-8 start, you have to take into account, I know many media people have talked about this. I don't think it was very representative of where the team was at. I know they didn't play very well. It takes time to integrate Caitlin. They weren't a great team coming into the year. They've had obviously 2 number 1 picks in a row. All this sort of stuff. And they've worked hard at a basically mini training camp during the Olympic break. Caitlin got a rest, which these rookies usually don't get. All these things factor in, but the strength of schedule at the beginning was insane. They had one of the toughest schedules in the league, and usually, especially in the NBA, I would say don't read into that too much, because you have to think about injuries, you don't know how good teams are going to be, etc., etc. But even though it's good for the WNBA and the women's sports side of things, because they said we're going to capitalize, we are going to play you guys in pretty much all national TV televised games. We are going to sell out all your games. You are going to play some of the best teams, some of the biggest stars on back-to-backs, multiple games during the week. It was a tough schedule because they went, let's capitalize on Caitlin. And they managed to get through it 8-1. I think anyone thought the Fever would make the playoffs at that point. I don't think I thought it at that point. I hadn't started my podcast yet, but I think, honestly, if you ask me now, I don't think Indiana were a shot at that point to make the playoffs, and they've turned it around. And the catalyst of that is Caitlin Clark, which we will get into when we talked a little bit about Rookie of the Year shortly. But look, I think it's incredible. I mean, it's the first time they're over 500 since 2019. Okay, past 7 seasons, 5 of them, the Fever had single-digit win totals. Right, like in 2022, attendance was terrible. They went 5-31. I think it's just incredible what they've done. I think it's incredible what Caitlin's done. And I think it's also backed up by this. And I think this is another reason they're going to win, because if you look at win shares and the amount of wins that rookies have added to their team, Caitlin is far above anybody else. Far above. She's just at about 3.5 games, or 3.5 wins that she's added on to their win total. And that's the difference between missing the playoffs at the moment and getting the 6th seed, essentially. Angel is second. I'll talk about it in a little bit. We've talked about it before. We've talked about top 5 players. Well, we haven't talked about it, but I'm going to talk about it. WNBA's top 5 players by WPA, which is win probability added. Okay. That's Aja Wilson and then Brianna Stewart. Alyssa Thompson is also on there. But even that, you look at that, 6.8 wins almost for Aja. Okay. That's the MVP. I'm going to give you my case in a minute that I think Caitlin Clark will end up in the top 5 of the MVP voting. I think it's incredible. I think they're going to make it. I think the playoffs are going to be fascinating. So please remember that the playoffs begin on September 22nd. We are almost there. We are so close. I can't wait to see what they do. On the other end of things, I hope that my Dallas Wings get the first pick in the draft next year. Okay. But yeah, look, I think it's been incredible to watch. And I think another thing, like if you look at the power rankings, and I know power rankings are a bit more arbitrary. It depends on who you are, what website you look at, etc., etc. But for the first time in 5 years, they have a winning record. And on the power rankings, do you want to have a guess where they are on the power rankings if you haven't had a look, by the way? I mean, I can tell you. I don't think you'll guess it. Obviously, New York won. Okay. Been there for a long time. Two second. Connecticut Sun, we've talked about them maybe being a bit fraudulent. They were 3 last week. Minnesota's dropped down. The other team that potentially the Fever would play in the second round of the playoffs. Right? Indiana Fever, 4th in your power rankings. They were 5th last week. 4th in the power rankings above the Aces. Now, I want to keep in mind too, as much as I've been saying with the Aces, I don't think they're going to make it out of the first round. I don't think they're playing very good basketball. They're still, with the roster they have, a chance. They're still on paper a top team. They have 3 more wins than the Fever. 3 more wins. Like, they're not going to give that advantage up, don't get me wrong. But 3 wins between 4th and 6th in the standings. Look, I honestly think there's a chance. Like, I don't know. maybe I'm too optimistic, but I think that the Indiana Fever 100% have a chance of making the finals. It's a slim chance. Nobody else but me maybe gives them any chance. You asked me today, I think 10% chance they make the finals. 10% chance. I think it's realistic. It's wishful. Everything has to come together. The other teams have to falter, but I think it's realistic. Anyway, I think we've done enough there. I've talked for a long time about this subject. That's basically one episode on its own. We're not going to go for a full hour. I'm not going to make you sit through a full hour of a podcast episode. I know for a lot of people that's too much. I've covered most of it, but I do want to talk about the Rookie of the Year race, which I think is very important to cover, and the MVP race. I already said Caitlin Clark could be top 5 in the MVP race. I'm going to tell you why. I've already given you a lot of stats. I'm going to repeat them. She has been incredible. She's been on a tear. She has won Player of the Week in the Eastern Conference 2 weeks running. Asia obviously taking it out in the Western Conference. I think when you're looking at MVP favorites at the moment, Asia obviously number 1. I think you have to put Brianna Stewart in there. I think there's a few others. But I think Caitlin Clark, the way she's been playing, her stat line that she's averaging over 18 points, leading the whole league, by the way, the whole league in assists. I think that she should be in the top 5 of MVP voting. I just do. And I think that's further hammered home by the fact that she should be unanimous for the Rookie of the Year. And we've talked about this. There are still some people saying that Angel Reese should be Rookie of the Year. The race is over, man. It's not close. And I've talked about this, and I want to talk about it without putting Angel down because I don't think she deserves that. I think she's a great player in her own right, but I just don't think it's close. I think Caitlin is a much better all-around player. And Angel Reese is a great rebounder, and I think that is her one, at the moment, maybe only strength on the basketball court. There is a greater chance, let me put this into perspective. At the moment, there is a greater chance of a three-pointer from Caitlin Clark, who, by the way, has the furthest average three-point distance out of anyone in the NBA or WNBA behind Steph, Sabrina, etc. There's a bigger chance of her three-pointer going in than a layup from Angel Reese. Just think about that. I mean, it's baffling. And I'm not saying that to pile on Angel. I've seen so many things out there we've talked about in the past of her being put down for missing easy shots around the basket and getting her own rebounds. And while I agree with some of that, and that adding to her rebound percentage and her rebound numbers, I just don't think, even though she's setting these rebounds records, I don't think it's close. People at the start of the year put the playoff seeding as an argument. Right now, the Fever are miles ahead in how they're playing at the moment at their playoff seeding. They have already secured their playoff spot. They will end up higher than Chicago. I've guaranteed that. They will at least end up in the 7th seed. I guarantee that the Fever will end up in the 6th seed with the amount of home games they have over these last 7 games. 6 of them being at home, like I mentioned before. The way they're playing, their home court advantage, the way Caitlin's playing, I think she's going to continue to put up incredible stats. And I just don't think it's close. Chicago are 1-8 since the Olympic break. That's what the Fever were to start the year. Okay, I mean, you know, it's just, it's not close. Like the Fever have won against every close rival this year, except for the Aces, and I don't think they're going to have to play the Aces in the playoffs. So I don't think that really matters. Um, I just don't think it's particularly close. I think it's over. I think Caitlin Clark with the Indiana Fever is the unanimous Rookie of the Year, and I think she's also, because of that and her stats, the way she's playing, the way the Fever are playing, also going to be in the top 5 of the MVP race. And I think that's just it. Like, I just don't know what else to say at this point. Like, I don't know what else to say. I mean, there's so many more stats I could read off for you. Like, she has assisted on 37.3% of the Fever's points this season. Previous record is held by Courtney Vandersloot, who we know is a magician when it comes to passing the ball. Her current mark, her record is 36.8%. I don't think Caitlin is going to dip below that. That's another record broken. Okay. Also, Courtney Vandersloot only did in 22 regular season games because that was a COVID interrupted season in 2020. Caitlin's doing it in a 40-game season. She has just broken so many records. Angels is only related to rebounds, and she's a great rebounder, but I think overall, Caitlin is just miles ahead, man. I don't think you can compare the two. And like I've said in the past, I don't want to bring up Caitlin to put Angel down, but I just don't think you can fairly. I think it's unfair to Angel Reese to compare her to Caitlin Clark, okay? Because she just doesn't have the same sort of impact. A wise man once said, rebounding doesn't matter. And that wise man was Isaac Harris from Locked On Mavs and now working for the Dallas Mavericks. Check out his podcast, by the way. Welcome to Mavs Land. But as much as that was a joke, because obviously rebounds do matter, if you lose the rebounding battle, it's not always the end of the world. And I think as great as Angel is at rebounding, I don't think it makes a big impact towards her team winning basketball games. I just don't think it does. I think you can see that by where the teams are, how the teams are playing. Yeah, I mean, even here, I'm looking through an ESPN article, and you've got some people talking about what Caitlin and Angel are both doing. But here, even one writer, Filippo, writes that with the way Clark, and I quote this, with the way Clark is driving so much of the Indiana offense through both her facilitating and destroying, talk has escalated over whether she will make an all WNBA team, which I think she also should, because she's clearly probably the best point guard in the league right now, and whether she could earn MVP votes. Remember, voters rank 5 players on their ballots, so AJ Wilson, for example, could still be unanimous MVP, but Clark could wind up elsewhere in voters' rankings. With 7 games left, including 4 against under 500 teams, that could be the direction things are going. Even he writes, and I don't make my opinions off articles like this. I'm just reading through this now. But even he writes, the way they've been playing over the last 2 weeks, it's hard not to wonder just how far that duo can take Indiana this fall. Could they make a run for the 4 or 5 seed if the Aces and Storm continue to stumble? Even if not, no team is going to want to see Indiana and its high-powered offense in the first-round series, where all the field would have to do is split the first 2 games on the road to ensure that would undoubtedly be a raucous Game 3 atmosphere at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And I agree. I totally agree. I don't think there's anything in that sentence that I haven't already talked about. And I think it's a pretty easy decision. So, look, those are my opinions on that. I don't want to go for forever. I've talked about it before. I just wanted to reiterate. I wanted to talk about the Fever's run to the finals. If they can do that, I think that's a really hot topic. I wanted to talk about the fact that the playoffs are almost here. I am really, really excited. We decided to rep this jersey because my Dallas Wings won't be there. I love the way that Caitlin goes about it and the way they're playing. And yeah, look, I don't think there's much more I can talk about. There's some other news I wanted to mention, like Maya Moore getting her jersey retired, which is obviously incredibly huge. Natasha Cloud was suspended after reaching her technical foul limit. There might be some other ones. Let me check for a second. I've got some things here over the last 2 weeks. Some more stats and some other things, like the most 25-point doubles this season. Asia with 15, Caitlin Clark next with 4. You know, like it's things like that that just hammer home my point. I posted some pictures of the difference in attendance from, you know, a while ago to what it is now in the WNBA. That was incredible. Some things about Paige Beckers and people, you know, supporting TFO and the US Open, things like that. All sorts of things. I mean, more stats. Caitlin Clark is the 5th player in WNBA history and first rookie to record 30 points and 10 assists on a career night, by the way. Is the first 30-point, 12-assist game in WNBA history. Betsy Hull's been playing really well, hitting shots from 3. There's been some fun presses, some fun little moments that I share on, especially on my X account at that WNBA podcast. She broke the rookie single season 3-point record during the week with plenty of games to go, by the way. I don't know what the season record is for 3-pointers made. I'm sure that that's held by Sabrina, and I want to say it's in the 200 range. I'm not sure of the exact number. She was the fastest player in WNBA history to record 500 points and 200 assists in a season. Also the first rookie with those numbers, obviously, in that case. The other players in the WNBA or NBA to record that before their 30th career game: Oscar Robertson, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas. It's just, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I keep piling on these stats. I mean, I guess I have things to say, but in terms of these races and these opinions, when it comes to the Rookie of the Year, the MVP, or WNBA teams, anything that where it comes to Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese, or Caitlin Clark versus any other rookie, and most other players, by the way, I just don't think there's much of an argument. I think if you watch both of them play and you think that the Rookie of the Year is close, I think you're a little delusional. I think you don't watch these games. I think you have an agenda. Or you just have a preference. And it's okay to have a preference, right? And it's okay to be biased, right? I am a big Dallas Mavericks supporter. I love Luka. And for all of his faults, I say he's one of the best few players in the league at the moment, okay, which I think he definitely is. And then you can argue over whether or not he's the best player in the world. And that's going to be different wherever you go. But I just think when you actually look statistically and with the eye test at these two specific players in the WNBA, I think it is very hard for me to look at that and say that Angel Reese is going to win Rookie of the Year. Don't get me wrong. Fantastic rookie, breaking her own records. I just don't think it's close. Okay. Also, Sabrina Maybury had a season high against her former team, actually, that she played a couple of weeks ago. More Caitlin Clark stats. I mean, here another record, I guess, another stat. She scored or assisted on over 1,000 points this season, over 100 points more than the next closest player, which is Sabrina Ionescu in 910. Okay, yeah. Look, I've run out of superlatives. I've run out of statistics. I have run out of things to say when it comes to this. I think this will be the last time I discuss it, but it's just such a hot topic all the time that I feel like I need to. I just wanted this to be a fever kind of playoff-based podcast since we missed out last week. It's coming quickly. It's really exciting. Go watch the WNBA. If you're not already, go watch the WNBA. What do you have to lose? Right? Take a bit time out of your day. Watch the WNBA. Watch some clips. Watch some highlights. I guarantee you, if you give it a chance, you'll fall in love with it. Don't let preconceived notions. Don't let other people tell you what you shouldn't or you shouldn't enjoy. Go watch the WNBA. And with that, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you for tuning in to that WNBA podcast once again today. Back with this kind of double episode, 45-minute episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too long and too much waffling on about not much. But I hope you feel more connected to the WNBA. And if you're not, please come back. Watch other WNBA podcasts, not just mine. I know, when it's just starting out, I'm not in a studio. I'm not with the quality of some other people. I don't have the Twitter following. I'd like to one day. But if you can, watch a WNBA podcast. Watch a show. Watch these players give interviews. Do their podcasts. Watch, watch their games. Watch their advertising. Do whatever you need to do. But give it a chance. And hopefully you'll feel even more connected. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, leave a review. Anywhere you can get this podcast on all your platforms. It would really help out. Follow me at that WNBA podcast on all social media, especially X, where I post most of the time. And yeah, that'll have my latest updates. And you can hopefully have a conversation with fellow fans with me. I'm always happy to chat. This is what I'm passionate about, and women's sport in general. So until next time, keep supporting women's basketball and celebrating, all these incredible players on and off the field. Cheers.